Hi, everyone. Okay, this is our last video on linear functions, and this is graphing, and you need to know how to graph. We're going to be doing a lot of graphing this semester, and we start with the easiest equations, lines. All right, now, the easiest lines to graph are horizontal and vertical lines. So we're going to start with that. So let's say in the homework, they ask you to graph the line, and they give you the equation y equals 6. All right. Well, the first thing I need you to do is figure out what kind of function are we working with. Y equals a number. Y is to the first power. This is linear. This is your brain thinking through what we've learned so far. This is linear because Y is to the first power. I have no X in the equation, which means this is a horizontal line. Where exactly are we going to draw this horizontal line? At Y equals 6. I literally go to the XY plane and I go to where Y is 6 and I draw a horizontal line going through 6. Pretend that looks horizontal. That's it. So your ability to recognize that the equation is a horizontal line is monumentally important. Okay. So this should be really easy if you have been paying attention to the formats. Okay. Second example. What if they give you x equals -1? Okay, again, same thing. It is linear because the x in the equation is to the first power. It is not tilted. It is not horizontal. There is no y in this equation. Therefore, we have a vertical line. Where are we going to draw this vertical line? We are going to go in the xy plane and we're going to go to -1 on the x-axis and we are going to draw our vertical line. I'm not doing it very well. Okay, draw our vertical line going right through -1. Number one, pretend that looks vertical, and number two, pretend that I actually hit the mark on the x-axis here. So you see this is very easy to do. When you do it in MyMathLab, you can have a nice pretty graph paper grid to work with, so you're not going to have to scrawl it out by hand like I'm doing. So just be careful. All right, they will try to screw with you, so be careful about this. What if they give you this one and they say f of x equals -2? What variable is the same thing as f of x? F of x is really the same thing as y. This is really telling you y equals -2. This is a horizontal line. It's going to happen at y equals -2. I'm going to go to -2 on the y-axis and draw a horizontal line. Okay, last one. Again, they're going to try to screw with you a little bit. They may give you something like this. 2 minus 3x equals 11. And I'm hoping that you notice this, that there is no, as you're analyzing it and looking at what you're working with, think there's no y in the equation. This is a vertical line. I just have to figure out where it's sitting. In order to figure out where it's sitting, you do need to go ahead and solve the equation for the only variable x and see what you get. All right, so let's solve this for x. Let's move the 2 over to the right. So I have -3x equals 11 minus 2. So -3x equals 9. Divide by -3 on both sides to get the x by itself. And x will be 9 divided by -3 is -3. So there's my equation. So I would go on the xy plane and I would go back to -3 and I would draw a vertical line. Let me try again. Just do this over. All right, I'm just trying to squeeze it in here, this little bitty space. Okay, 1, 2, 3, boom. So there's my line. Okay. All right. So don't let them mess with you if they give you something funny like this, or if they give you something funny like that. Okay. Vertical and horizontal lines are the easiest ones to work with. You should be able to graph those with no problems. And I hope that you can identify that you have a horizontal and vertical line by now. Okay. Next, what if you don't have a horizontal or vertical line? What if you have a tilted line? Well, it really depends on two things. It depends on the format that they give you, and it also depends on your own personal preferences because there's more than one way to do this. All right, so let me give you an example to start with. All right, suppose they give you y equals negative 2x plus 3. Okay, first of all, is this a line? Yes, if you analyze the equation, it has both x and y, so your brain should be thinking a tilted line. And then the format that we're in, this is solved for y. Do you see that? What kind of format is solved for y? We call it slope intercept form. I'm not writing it very neatly though. Slope intercept form. So the slope of my line is -2, and the y-intercept, where it crosses the y-axis, is +3. So if they give this to me in slope-intercept form, I'm going to first start by putting a point on my line at the y-intercept. I cross the y-axis at 3. Okay, let me get my computer here to behave. Okay, so I'm going to put a point right here at 3 on the y-axis, and then I am going to count. My slope is -2. Well, if you have an integer for a slope, you can make it look like a fraction, and we can think rise for the numerator over run for the denominator. So I am going to rise -2 and run +1 and put a point. I'm going to rise -2, go down 2, go +1, another point. And you can keep doing that. You really only need 2 to draw the line, but you can do it how many times you need to. And your line would go right through. I know that's not straight at all. Your line would go right through those points, okay? Now, the good news for you in MyMathLab is that you have a line tool, and you're going to click on your 2 points that you drew with your pen, and you're going to just click your mouse to drop those points, and it'll automatically draw that pretty straight line through there. You're not going to have to try to draw it by hand like I'm doing. All right, so this is what you do. If they give it to you in slope intercept form, start with the y-intercept and rise, run, count the slope, and find yourself another point, and you can graph the line. This is the first option, okay? All right, now, if you don't want to count rise over run and do it that way, I said that it depends on your preference. Here's the other way you could do it. The other way to do it is to take your equation of your line, and even though it's in slope-intercept form, you can make an XY chart, and you can find 2 ordered pairs on your line. I can let x equal 0. If I let x equal 0, then I have y equals -2 times 0 plus 3. So y equals 0 plus 3, so y is 3. So when x is 0, y is 3, and then I can let x equal 1. If I let x equal 1, I get -2 times 1 plus 3. So y is -2 plus 3. So y is 1. So I have, I could go back, and if I were going to graph it this way, the green way instead of the other way, then I would plot my 2 points. I have the point 0, 3. I have the point 1, 1. I would connect those with a straight line, and there I got my line. So it's just a different way to do it. So you can either make an XY chart and find 2 points on your line. How many points do you need to graph a line? 2. So you can find any 2 points on your line and do it that way. Or you can use the slope and the y-intercept and count out rise over run, and you get the same line. Okay, so that's why I say it kind of depends on your personal preference. So if it's given to you in this format, then you have these options. Now, what if they give it to you in standard form? If they give me a line in standard form, then I'm probably just going to do my chart and find 2 points. That's my preference. So let me go ahead and show you an example. What if they give you 2x plus 3y equals 12? And they say graph it. Well, if I have it in standard form like this, and it's a tilted line, is this one tilted? Yes, it's tilted. How do you know it's tilted? Because we have x and y in the equation. All right, so if I have a tilted line in standard form, I'm just going to do an xy chart and find 2 ordered pairs. If I let x equal 0, go to your equation, everywhere you have an x put a 0, and solve the equation for y. So I get 3y equals 12. Divide by 3 on both sides, and you get y equals 4. So when x is 0, y is 4. So one ordered pair on my line is the ordered pair 0, 4. Now, you can plug in a 1 for x. You might just try plugging in a 0 for y. So you just need to play with this and find some pretty integer answers. That's what you really want. So I'm going to let y equal 0. So 2x plus 3 times 0 equals 12. This time that whole term goes to 0. I get 2x equals 12. Divide by 2 on both sides, and you get x is 6. So when y is 0, x is 6. So I can plot these 2 points. I have 0, 4, and 6, 0. And you would draw a straight line. Don't laugh at my lines here. I'm doing this freehand. All right, so do the line between those 2 points and you have it. So if you have a standard form, you may have to play with it for a minute to find integer coordinates. And you want to have integer coordinates when you're doing it in MyMathLab because it's too hard to do fractions, okay? But this is a way you would graph a line if it's in standard form. Okay, now here's the last one. Here it says rewrite the equation, put it in slope-intercept form, and here they specifically want us to use the slope and y-intercept to graph the line. Okay, so let's start with the equation. 4x plus y plus 5 equals 0. It's a real odd way to write the line. This is a line. This is a tilted line. How do I know it's tilted? You have both an x and a y in the equation. Good. Okay, so the first thing it says is to write it in slope-intercept form. What does that mean? Solve for y. Slope-intercept form means solve for y. So to solve this for y, we're going to move the 4x term over to the right side and the 5 over to the right. I'll have y equals negative 4x minus 5. So that is the answer to part A. It says solve the equation for y, put it in slope-intercept form. Part B says give the slope and the y-intercept. Well, now that it's in slope-intercept form, the slope of my line is the coefficient number of x, that is the slope, and the constant number is my y-intercept. So the answer to part B, the slope is negative 4, and the y-intercept is 0, negative 5. Do you remember that for an ordered pair, if it's a y-intercept, the x-coordinate has to be 0? Now, you do need to read carefully in MyMathLab when they ask you this question, because sometimes they might want you to enter an ordered pair. And if you have to enter an ordered pair, you have to enter 0, negative 5. On the other hand, if they say the y-intercept is, and they want you to just type in a blank or in a box, and it doesn't say an ordered pair, it says a number, you may just type in the number negative 5. It will tell you explicitly what to do in MyMathLab. Make sure you read and follow directions, because if you type the number negative 5 and they wanted an ordered pair, they're not going to give you credit. They're going to ding it. Okay, so just make sure you're paying attention. All right, so that's the answer to part B. Now, part C, use the slope and the y-intercept to graph the line. Okay, all right, so let me draw a coordinate system here. I should have put a grid in here. All right, so we have an XY plane, and I have, first of all, the y-intercept is negative 5, and the slope is negative 4. We're going to make it negative 4 over 1, because to do it this way, we're going to count rise over run. So I am going to rise negative 4. So I'm going to go down 4. So negative 6, 7, 8, 9, go down 4, and then run positive 1. So we have 1 point at my y-intercept. I rise negative 4, I run positive 1, I get my next point, and I will have the line that goes through these two, kind of up this way. I kind of missed that. All right, drawing these by hand on this weird computer screen is challenging. So be glad that you don't have to draw them by hand on a computer screen. All right, so there we go. Something like that. That's a little bit better. All right, so you get the idea. So you will have some questions that look like this also in MyMathLab. All right, so this is the very start to graphing. We are going to be graphing a lot of things. Graphing is how you analyze real life data. And we have to start with easy things like simple lines to get you used to working in the coordinate plane, the XY plane. And you're going to start learning how to do a lot of practical things, but it starts with this linear function stuff. So you should be now well equipped to do the homework. Give it a shot. Re-watch any of these videos that you need to, and I will see you in class.